Good morning. All right, you guys, I thought I would do another quick canning 101 for beginners, quick like an answer and question video, because I got a lot of really good questions on my last video that I wanted to address here instead of constantly writing it in the comment section, just because there were so many of you that asked these questions and they're really good questions. So I figured, you know what, I know I've mentioned them before in the past in random canning videos, but I never made like a dedicated video to these questions. So that's what we're doing today. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to answer is, number one question I think I got on that video was, Heather, where are all the bands or the rings on your jars? So this is a band, and when you can with, you know, with a lid and a ring or band, depending on what you want to call it. And many people do leave their bands or their rings on their jars. I do not. Now, to each his own. There are good reasons to leave them on, and there's good reasons to not leave them on. And I do believe the latest research shows that you can do either or. I choose to take my bands off. So after I can, I allow my jars to sit and rest for 24 hours, sometimes a little longer, depending if I'm canning something like that has a bit more fat in it, like meat, anything like that that could pop a seal. I'll let them sit on my counter for maybe up to 48 hours, just to watch them, just to make sure that everything gets sealed properly. Then what I do is I go ahead and I take off the band, and then I give my jars a nice hot soapy wash with hot soapy water, Dawn dish soap, because it cuts the grease, along with I would say probably a 1/4 cup of cleaning vinegar, and that will get your jars nice and sparkling clean. And then what I do is I dry them off. I dry the tops off really well. I mark what it is, I mark the date, and then this goes up in my pantry behind me. Now, I choose to leave my bands off because, number one, if you leave them on and wash your jars this way, sometimes, and more often than not, you will get debris from the canning process when you can, especially when you pressure can. Some food will kind of ooze out of this seal. And so what happens is, if you wash your jar with the ring on, you're never getting underneath that band. Therefore, that food residue is going to stay there. Now, over time, what can happen is not only can it rust the band, but it can also mold, and it can cause your seal on your food to pop. And so when that happens, you have a failed seal, and then, you know, everything has to get tossed. So I like to remove my band, and I like to really pay close attention when I'm washing this jar up to right around this seal here, and making sure that everything is super clean. Then, now some people do that, and then they'll put the rings back on, sometimes lightly, just to store their bands. I don't do that. Now, I have roughly, if I had to guess, I probably have $700 to $800 jars in my collection. I can't fit 700 or 800 bands in my house. I used to have a huge box, and then I had, you know, then I went into a huge tote, and then it turned into 2 totes, and then I just couldn't anymore. So this is how I store my rings and bands, or my lids and bands. Sorry, it's early. So I use 1 gallon storage bags, and this is where I keep all of my lids, and then I keep 2 gallon size bags of bands. And this is how I store them. I don't need any more than this. That's a roughly, I want to say it's about 6 dozen bands. I don't need more than that. I only keep clean bands, okay? I don't keep rusty bands. I don't use rusty bands on my food because I don't know. You know, cleanliness is next to godliness, they say, right? And I just, when I'm prepping food, I try to keep it as clean as possible. And I don't feel comfortable canning with an old rusty band. It's gonna be near my food. I just am not comfortable with it. So once my bands start to rust and discolor a lot, I just toss them and use fresh. I'm always buying jars, so I always have, you know, new bands in my collection, so that's never really a problem. But I only allow myself to store so many, and then that way I don't get overwhelmed. That way I don't have just a lot of clutter in my pantry. Everything is very organized. I know exactly where to find it. I keep one basket just for wide mouth, and then I keep one basket for my regular mouth, and then I keep one basket for all of my specialty lids. So this will include a lot of my glass top lids, my Tattler lids, the seals for that, you know, the weck jars, the little clips, all of that. I keep that in a separate basket so that I can find my specialty jar tops when I need them. So that's how I do it. Storing them without the band also allows me to keep an eye on my jars. So if over time, for whatever reason, because it does happen, a lid pops, I'm gonna smell it first, and then it's going to be much easier for me to find that jar amongst jars that have no bands on them versus trying to find it and having to unscrew every band and check every jar. And that has happened to me twice now, both with jars of beans. So I like it that way. Also, you know, if you had a band on and that lid failed for whatever reason, it had a piece of food particle underneath it, and over time, 6 months down the road, it popped the seal. Sometimes having the band on can reseal it. That's what you call a false seal. So the food in the food now in your jar is contaminated. It's old. It's bad. But you're not going to know it because you're going to take off this band and it has resealed itself, although oxygen now has gotten into that jar. And so you take a risk of eating bad food. So without the band on, there's no chance of that happening. You're going to, it's not going to be able to reseal itself because it's not going to have anything to hold it down. So that's another reason why I don't store my jars with the bands. The number one reason, mold, making sure everything is clean, keeping anything that could rust over time off of my jars. If that seal pops, I can smell it, I can find it easy, and I don't have a lot of clutter. If anybody that knows me, I don't like clutter, and I like everything to have a home. I like everything to I'm able to keep things organized that way, and then I don't feel overwhelmed, and I don't feel like, oh, I just got stuff everywhere. So it's nice, neat, in a basket, and I keep it over on the shelf that stores my empty jars, so right up there. So really easy for me to grab and use. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to talk about were jars and their sizes and their measurements. Okay, so really easy. Half pint, this is our jelly jar. Then we have the pint, and then we have the quart. Easy measurements, especially if you are canning and you don't have, or you're pulling something off of your shelf and you don't have a measuring cup handy. This is going to be 1 cup. The pint is going to be 2 cups, and then your quart is going to be 4 cups. So if you know that you're going to make, you know, 2 cups of rice or 1.5 cups of rice for dinner, you can grab a 2-cup jar of broth or stock and dump it right in. I use onion stock. It's fantastic when you make homemade rice, especially in your Instant Pot, and you'll know right off the bat how much you have. So that's a handy little just a little measurement thing. You know, sometimes I don't have a measuring cup, especially if I take jars with me camping. And so it's nice to have and use this as a measuring cup when you're cooking in your little kitchen in your camper. So that's handy. Also, measurements on a jar, and this is something that newbies don't know, and so I'm passing the baton, letting you guys know so you can pass it on to somebody else. Measuring. So when you're dealing with headspace when you're canning, a great way to do that without using a tool are the lines on the jar. And I'm gonna try to hopefully get my camera to focus on that just a little bit. Okay, so you're going to find on the jar where all 3 lines meet up, and this is going to be your measurement. So this bottom ring right here is going to be your 1-inch space. So when you're pressure canning and it's calling for 1-inch headspace, you're going to fill your liquid up to that line right there. The middle line is going to be your 1/2-inch space, and the top line is going to be your 1/4-inch space. So that comes in handy when you're doing jelly and it calls for a 1/4-inch headspace. Many vegetables call for 1/2-inch headspace. So if you don't have a measuring tool, which is one of these little debubblers, it's got like a ridge on it. Do you see that? And you can use that on your jar for headspace. If you don't have one of these and you're having a hard time finding the headspace, you can use those lines right there molded into the jar as your 1-inch, 1/2-inch, and 1/4-inch headspace. And so that comes in handy when you're canning, especially when you're canning a lot. You got to move fast and you're filling jars. You can just go by those lines right there in the jar and you'll be spot on. All right, you guys, I hope those little tips and tricks were helpful for you. I hope I explained why I don't store my jars with bands properly. It's early, but I wanted to make sure that I made this video for you guys because I got so many questions about that, and it's a great question because you're gonna meet canners that store their jars with the bands and you're gonna meet canners that don't, and it's good info for you as a beginner canner to decide what's best for you and how you want to do your canning pantry, you know, how you want to store it and organize it. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any more canning questions for me, leave them down below. I'm going to go back to the video, my last video that I did. I'm going to kind of scan through the comment section because I know there were other questions that were really good there as well. And I am here to help you out as much as I can. I'm so excited for so many of you have hit me up and said that you're buying your pressure canner for the first time. You're buying your water bath canner for the first time. You are ready to take the step into the canning world, and I'm so excited for you guys, and I am cheering you on. This is such an empowering and rewarding life skill, and I really think moving forward with the world the way that it is today, and it just seems to be getting worse every day, right? This is going to be an asset to you. This life skill not only is going to be empowering, but it's also going to save you money. It's going to be very rewarding to you. And I'll tell you, nothing is more secure than knowing that I can pretty much put anything in a jar and put it up in my pantry. So I'm so excited for you guys. I'm here if you need me. I'm here to cheer you on, and I will be seeing you soon. I do plan on canning celery. Many of you were interested in that. You know, I learned that from Bev over at our half-acre homestead. I'll leave her link above. She's the canning queen, and I learned so much from her when I was starting out. Her channel is an asset, you guys. So, you know, go over there, check out her videos. There's so many great canners here on YouTube, and so many willing to help you guys. So, but canning celery is coming up, and also canning onion stock. I know I have canned it with you guys, but I've never made it with you guys. So I'm gonna show you how I make my onion stock. Again, I learned that from Wilhelm's Kitchen, Tina. I'll leave her link up above, and you guys can go check her out. But I learned how to can onion stock from her, and honestly, it is my favorite, one of my favorite things in my pantry, because I use it all the time and I go through jars and jars of it. So that video is going to be coming up. So those are my 2 upcoming canning videos right off the bat that I can think of. I am going to do the chicken coop tour for you guys. I'm hoping to film that today, but we've got that big storm coming in, so we'll have to play it by ear, but that is coming up. I'm going to try to film that this week for you guys. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, leave them down below for me. I'll just turn on the camera and chitty chat with you guys. It's just easier for me to answer this way than it is, you know, typing out on my phone. So anyway, guys, I will be seeing you soon, and you guys take care. Bye, guys.